If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me once again I have Josh. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm surviving. We were talking before we started recording, and the weather's kicking my butt.
Yeah, about to get mega cold.
Yeah.
Well,
it's also the dry, and then it's a little bit of the pressure is killing my head. It's just one thing after another. Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. We had our I finally got back to playing game this last weekend. Inspired another topic thought that I put in the backlog here. Everything else is going good. Just chilling. This week has gone relatively quick. I mean, can't complain. But yeah,
that's good. That's good. Maybe we could just have a nice simple conversation about just like what we're up to this week. We don't have to go into any specific gaming knowledge or topics.
You're right. Maybe we should talk about this week. We were actually thinking about doing a podcast on the weather today.
The weather. Yeah. Weather is really important. Not in game, just like outside. Like, if it's the right temperature, you're going to get more players at your table. So build that weather machine, gentlemen.
Yeah. So we're clearly leading you on, which is what we're actually going to be talking about today, which is red herrings.
Oh, I love a little bit of red herring. Some sliced onion and maybe little chives.
Yeah, when I see you this weekend, you're getting your pickled herring, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I forget it every year for New Year's at your place.
I want nothing to do with that. So
it might be intentional from now on. I might just, leave pickled herring at your house. I think I put red herring on the list because I was running a pre-built module, and there was a section of it where the players were instructed to go on like a little mini quest to unlock a room that was supposed to be there. But you finally get through all of the stages and it just opens up and there's nothing in the room. It was a complete waste of time that they thought because it was so built up. And what I found was, rather than just being upset, my players enjoyed the crap out of it because they did get to do a bunch of stuff. They ran around, just fixing things and solving puzzles and tracking stuff down, but it went nowhere. And I was thinking about red herrings. So,
yeah, I like red herrings. In games, and so first we should probably describe before we go into what red herrings are. But what is a red herring?
According to my deep and voracious investigation here, a red herring is a clue or a bit of story that either leads to nothing or to a dead end. Specifically, it's like in a murder mystery, you might have a bunch of clues that could point to different suspects, and it isn't until you get more context that you find out that those are not actual clues. They're just happenstance or just random things that have occurred.
Yeah, you think about like any great mystery movie, you have to lead people into. It'd be boring if all the clues led to one person and it was that person. Okay.
Yes.
So a good mystery has many clues, that there are many suspects, and a preponderance of evidence leads you to one person, although all that evidence is false, effectively, that leading you to the wrong person. And then it's only once you have that context that you can clearly see that the evidence that you were given is really leading to this person. This is the person who it was all along.
Aaron,
Yes.
do you know where the term red herring comes from?
No, but I'm sure you're going to tell me. What is the etymology?
It's actually there is no fish that's red herring. There are herrings that are smoked and preserved in a way that kippers them, that turns them red. So this bit of red herring meat, uh, according to stories, was used to train scent hounds. So in a way, they would drag it along, and the hound would track this bit of red herring, but there was no actual thing for them to hunt or catch. It led nowhere. It was just training them to follow a trail. So the story is that following a bit of red herring will ultimately lead you not to the prize that you're looking for. It's just a dirt path that goes nowhere.
Yes, but the whole point of putting them into your stories is to enhance the story. It's
Yeah.
to make uh side stories more interesting, and to lead your players into places that they might not have expected. So like obviously like I think it's at like Alex's Law. I don't remember what it's called. There's some guy wrote some law for doing mysteries or solutioning in your games, and you always have to give 3 options. Well, in a mystery, if you give 3 options, your players have a 1 in 3 chance of selecting the right option. Okay. Obviously, I'm simplifying this here. But if they choose to go down the path of one of these other options here, you don't have to. If you listen to the podcast long enough, typically I say try to lead your players to the water and help them find their way into the story here. This is you intentionally not doing that. This is intentionally giving something that perhaps the intrigue of the idea is enough that the players will come away enjoying it. And I think that that's what we're really going to have to talk about here is how do you make a red herring interesting and fun? Because if there is no fun associated to it, you lead the players far, far, far away from the main story, and then you deliver nothing, because that's the essence of the red herring. Your players are going to go, well, that was a waste of time. Why did we do all that? Why did you make us go so far for so long? Like,
Yeah. You know, there's in a murder mystery, like that the clue where you're in the house, you're investigating this swarthy cast of ne'er do wells, and any one of them could have committed said murder. And there are a pile of clues. If you're going to have a large number of clues that ultimately most of them go nowhere, they should go nowhere pretty quick.
yes. Yes, this is what I call. So if I were going to dictate this, and again, I think we've briefly touched on red herrings in a previous podcast. My advice would be what I would call like 1 layer deep red herrings, which is you look at the situation or the information being given to you, and it's a fun scene. You get something out of it, and then there is nothing there.
Yeah,
There's nothing more to go on with. And so if you're going to present a lot of red herrings, I would suggest doing something very similar to that, which is you get something out of it. It's enjoyable, good amount of feedback there, but it is not like a complete waste of time.
the uh when you've got a number of those, you could have most of them are like, that one level deep. You figure it out, you're good. You move on to the next one. You figure out, you move on to the next one. Um, if you want to have a longer story or a more interesting story, you could have two different clues that are longer, that one eventually leads to a dead end, but you can investigate both of them sort of parallel. So it gives the opportunities for checking different things out, drawing it out longer. Um, for it to be a true red herring, though, you want to deviate down a path that's like, it's definitely this guy. Oh wait, it absolutely isn't. Or this is the way to solve this, or this is where we're supposed to go. Um, but ultimately, it should be fun. It should be interesting. It should involve some things. It's not just you wander here, you roll, you wander there, you roll. I give you some flavor text, we're done. Um, have your players be involved in it. That's really what you're looking for there. The longer one, I like to think of that as like the Law and Order red herring, right? In
Mhm.
every episode of Law and Order or Law and Order SVU or all the other Law and Orders, those are the only two I've ever watched. I know there was like 6 other ones. That for like the first half of the episode, it's definitely this one guy until it absolutely isn't. And there's been clues along the way that they've sort of ignored because they were so focused on the one thing. And then you find out that that person is either also a victim or something, um, which may seem a lot like the twist in a story. We've talked about twists before, but really, when you've got the option to investigate the clues and you ignore it to focus only on one path, that's a red herring. That's not a twist. That was, you gave your players the option to go down two different paths and they completely ignored one. So that's your Law and Order red herring. Big long story that leads to the revelation that they're on the wrong path.
Yeah, that's sort of like from the mystery aspect of it. You can go down this, and then it's like, oh wait, all these clues, we've misinterpreted them this whole time. Um, you know. So, I mean, they tend to work best in a mystery game, but red herrings can also be side stories and side information that you've put within your game that, should your players explore those things, they have nothing to do with the main story. They are off the beaten trail. You could call them a side story, but you're almost preying on the curiosity of your players at that point, and allowing them to go in some direction there. But I mean, like, a true red herring comes in a mystery sense. Like, I don't know if you could quite call those red herrings, but they're definitely adjacent to the concept.
Yeah, I think like the whole thing that got me into this was the one in the dungeon crawl. And I think that's real fun because in a dungeon crawl, you've got a party that's going and they're just going to they're going to work their way from one end to the other end of this dungeon, or from the top of it to the bottom of it, or however your dungeon is laid out, right? And they're going to murder their way through the whole thing, or they're going to, solve various dungeon residence issues, whatever it is. But when they are presented with a bit of evidence that there might be a treasure or a secret thing, or, just a bit of intrigue or mystery or something, they'll jump all over it. And so you can just have some sort of rat man that's living in the sewers tell them of a great treasure so that they will stop beating him up. Um, and they're sent to do some tasks, and then they have to go do some other tasks, to get the these other people to help him, and then they've got to go track these different things down and solve some puzzles. And it turns out when you get to the end, maybe that rat man who lives in the sewers, maybe his idea of treasure is not what your party's idea of treasure is. And that's a hilarious little red herring path that they can be going down, thinking that they're going to find something, only to find absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of options for this thing, but it's that misdirection from the story, and whether it's using your player's curiosity against them or a level of intrigue. Because like it's sort of like it is the Chekhov's gun situation, which is if you present it to your players, naturally your players will be curious about it. If you highlight something to your players, most player groups will inquire or, spend time devoting their player time into figure out why you brought that up. Okay. Because a lot of GMs don't, tell a story that isn't like that obvious. Okay. Like it's just like, if you go to a convention, a lot of stories are that obvious. You have to do it because it's a short time period that you have players there, and you have to make things happen. So if that's your experience in playing games, when you sit down at a table and the GM mentions these 3 items, but only one of them is relevant, your players will latch on to items that are not relevant to the story, and that's why they're so fun, because it adds different dimensions to your game. Now there has to be a sort of a payoff with a red herring story or a red herring clue that your players come away with in terms of their fun or their interest. Like, why was that there? If that's the question they have to ask, well, whether it has nothing or not to do with your story, like you mentioned with the rat man who has their own treasure in the sewer, that is the payoff. That is his treasure. Now you've learned the mystery of the rat man.
Mm-hmm. And the treasure was the friends that we made along the way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like I mentioned last week.
No, I think that yes, there's definite ways to put red herrings in your game that are going to make it a bad time for your players, and it's very much that that whole concept of players getting tunnel vision. They see you've presented them with one thing, they're going to go after that thing, like the scent hounds that red herrings are possibly named after. They're gonna find, follow that path as far as it gets, and if it doesn't lead to the rest of the story, that can get frustrating if they are, unaware of the concept of these different paths. Um, and I think a lot of that comes down to like video games. I know a lot of the big name video games that I've played recently, they not only hand you like, oh, you've completed objective A, now you have to go to objective B. They also like put a line on your map and put a marker in your thing. So just like turn slightly this direction, just keep walking. I don't care if there's a mountain in the way, I don't care if there's an ocean in the way, you just keep walking until you get to that marker. That's where your next stage of the story is. And there's not a lot of that. You got to figure it out. What is here's the evidence. Where's the next place you're supposed to go that you'd get in like I think the last game that I remember doing that sort of thing was like Oblivion, where you'd have to like read the notes and it explains what's going on. You got to look at the map, you got to talk to people to find things out, track stuff down. That can be fun, but you have to be in that sort of mindset. And then I think that there's also a problem you can have in a game with red herrings, especially we're talking about, the swarthy cast of characters in like Clue, where you've got 8 or 10 characters that could all possibly be it, and like little clues, you got to investigate each one of them. Well, you can run into analysis paralysis. That too many choices, and your players don't know where to start. If there's too many things to choose from, and they don't know where to go, or worse, the different members of your party all decide to go and look at different things.
Well, again, that's why you have to have why at a certain point your red herring has to become made very apparent that it has nothing to do with the story. I'll give you a good story beat that Jared once did with his red herring. So he was telling a very complicated story. It spanned like 3 iterations of like this mega epic story. And we're in the 3rd iteration. We finally kind of come to like this conjunction point because we had latched on to the main story at some point. We got there. And but he had presented with us all this other information because he created this massive world with all this other information in it. And the guy at that point is sort of like an interstellar time traveler dimension guy. I'm not going to go too deep into the story here, but it made sense for the story overall. Anyways, we're talking with him, and he's answering our questions about the story that we've kind of had up to this point, connecting the dots, maybe putting some clarity to stuff. And I asked him, but what about this thing that we had found out there in the wild? And Jared says, the guy turns around, he pulls off a shelf, he says, this is a herring, it is red, and he hands it to me.
And, but see, that's fun. It's
Yes.
putting that hey, you guys have spent time and effort tracking this down, and it was a joke. That's why the finding the treasure, the rat man's treasure in the sewer, and finding out, oh, this is absolutely something that a rat man would find as treasure, is enjoyable because it's it's not just you come to an empty room and there's nothing there. There has to be a payoff to a red herring, but that payoff is not what you were expecting it to be. It is a subversion of your expectations, and it usually is comical or just like an obvious thing when it's not a murder mystery, and it's like, oh, this is because of this other thing, and it's just like, if you have anything that's not just that one level deep red herring, it should be fun. It's got to be interesting. It's got to be fun. The path getting there should be enjoyable. And the payoff at the end, while not what they're expecting or wanting, should, like, just be that little kick. Just that little something that gets it over the line of, okay, that was a complete waste of our time, but I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, your player should derive enjoyment out of it. And so that's why you should pay it off there at the end. And again, it doesn't have to pay off with like, and this is the actual clue that saves you and brings you back to the whole thing. No, it's just, it's you learned something about the thing you were chasing, even if it wasn't your main objective. But I will caution against something with red herrings, and I think we're going to get into some of the cautions about red herrings going forward. Because you already talked about analysis paralysis. But if you present a red herring, your players go down the wrong path. If the main story dramatically alters because of the time they took to go down that path, it feels like a loss.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get an opportunity to prevent or alter the main story, and instead you ended up being presented with this weird side thing that the GM created. You have to tread carefully in that situation. is my opinion with that, because that then it feels like you're punishing your players or you're working against them, and you don't want that to come across from the red herring that you put in your story.
Now, I've never been a big fan of. I like the concept, but the execution is terrible. Of like timed events. I've run stories before that have had like chase scenes, right? Where you're supposed to be like trailing a suspect across the rooftops. And you're supposed to jump from rooftop to rooftop and keep up with them. And then they dive down into an alley and it could go left or they could go right. Well, you're offering too many options for failure that just dead end your players. And if you have a red herring, that's an option for them to go down, a path they could go, but by going down it, it locks them out of progression somewhere else. That's that's not fun. It's not enjoyable. That's it's punishing them for following a bit of story that you've created. And now, why would they want to continue enjoying the stories that you created if you're punishing them for doing so? I'm not saying that you should never punish your players. I
No.
try
You
and
can punish your
murder
players,
them
but
all the
if
time.
you put the red herring there, expecting that your players might go down this path, but you put it there purposefully to be like, if they go down this path, then the villain gets away, or the villain gets away with it. Okay, that doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel earned. Like you went and did this thing, and then now the opportunity to have stopped the villain, which you had in your story, was thwarted because of dumb chance. I understand that's how life works. Okay, we're playing a game.
Yeah, and it sounds like it'd be a really interesting story to tell, but it wouldn't be one to play. Where the choices you make, where you go, what you do, um, like do not directly affect whether or not the story continues, right? So like you're wandering over here, you're investigating, you know, a a, a, a baker who's having a problem with their loaves and their ovens, and there's a thing, and you think you're on a side quest, and the big murdering villain destroys a village over there because you weren't there to stop it because you were doing side quests. Well, that's not fun. That's not enjoyable. You're missing content. You're missing part of the story because you're enjoying a different part of the story. And really, well, yes, that's how life works. If you wander off and don't do what you're supposed to be doing, opportunities may be
They
missed.
pass you by, like it's.
But we're playing a fantasy game here. We're trying to escape reality and have a good time, not be reminded that every time I, you know, mess around and play video games when I should be like working on my story or uh, taking care of my children. You know, opportunities are just passing me by. I don't need that in my games. Also, that's just mean.
Yeah, it's a unnecessary part of it. Also, there's just like, slow down your story. Your story, that's a whole different topic, but slow down your story. It doesn't need to be rushed. But believe me, you want to have more opportunities to work. And this is a way to do that, is by offering your players red herrings, things that they will go down. Okay, if you feel like you are rushed for time, presenting your players with interesting tidbits that they can explore, a la red herrings, are, while they have no payoff in like true like gold gain or anything like that. There'll probably be experience gain because you're playing the story, yada yada. But like, there's no, besides their own enjoyment of discovering what they just went and did and making the friends along the way. Besides that, that's really all they're going to get out of it. And so let them enjoy that part of it, and it gives you time to button up things if perhaps you are running out of good ideas. Maybe you wrote yourself into a wall and you can't figure out what to do next. This is a way that you can buy yourself time. A lot of good storytelling is about buying just enough time to figure out an answer to what your players are doing.
To building the railroad right in front of you as you're going down it. Yes. I think another thing you can do is you could always, you've got a session 0. We always talk about how it's a good idea to set expectations there. Let your players know that your story may include red herrings so that they expect them and are like, okay, I understand that this could lead nowhere, but I'm willing. I think it's important that you let them know up front. Then to not actually include any red herrings in your story to really drive them insane.
Yes.
Maximum chaos.
Yeah. Let them know it's going to be coming, especially if there's a new group of people that you play with and you want like the idea of presenting a lot of like branching ideas and things that probably won't result in anything. Again, because if you mention it, your players are probably going to go look into it.
Yeah.
Okay. If you tell them that ham sandwich is important, or if you say this, like you meet Tony and Tony is he's the baker and Tony's eating a ham sandwich. He takes one bite, he puts it down, he doesn't touch it again. Why? Your players are going to freak out about that. They're going to be the whole night's going to be focusing on, well, why isn't Tony eating his ham sandwich? And somebody says he always does that. He takes one bite, he puts it down. Why?
I could probably come up with something if you gave me enough time, but like that's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Your players will be drawn to, and it's not like it's like well, that just could be an idiosyncrasy about Tony. You don't know. But like it could be that simple, is that it's just something he does. But your players are going to ask about it. They're going to want to know. They're going to say, Tony, tell me your secrets. Okay.
Tony's been looking for that one type of ham that he has a child and has been killing delicatessen owners every time. He can't find that one ham. He takes that one bite and it's not that flavor from his childhood. And little does he know, it's actually the bread. He just screwed up the bread. Like,
and if that's after a long night of questioning people, if that's what you get out of it, that's a fun little evening. Okay, you went completely all in on trying to figure out that weird little mystery about Tony. Okay, and that's fun. Okay, but if you do that. And meanwhile, while you spend all night doing that, the burglar robs everyone blind, the one you're trying to stop. That doesn't feel good. That's going to piss me off.
A little bit. I mean, but Tony was a mass murderer of delicatessens, so
I mean, I guess you stop the serial killer from murdering more delicatessens. So
I don't know. They're saying that ham from delis causes cancer now, so maybe he's just trying to save us all.
Not all heroes wear capes, right, Josh? So
some of them wear aprons.
Some of them wear aprons. Do you have anything else you want to add to this one, Josh?
Think the only thing, like, I wrote this down. I was like, I got something pithy. If the investigation of a red herring is fun, nobody's going to be upset. Diversions can be delightful. Distractions can be annoying, but out and out lies don't make friends. Red herrings should be enjoyable. They should lead to something. Not what they wanted, but something.
I like it. If you have thoughts on red herrings, maybe you've used a couple in your story and you've got a great example of one, let us know. Level Up Your Gaming Podcast at gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. You can subscribe to the podcast on all your favorite podcasting sites or YouTube. You can like it, recommend it to a friend, review it, all those good things. That all helps the podcast out quite a bit. And that'll wrap us up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.